Hi, welcome to Volume 5 of Life in the Lobby. It's another beautiful day in the world's lockdown regime. So I thought I'd just put this one together and try and get this out for you all. When I was working in the hotels, I started off, as I say, on the back door security of a major hotel in central London on Park Lane. And my ultimate aim was to move to the front of house, to become one of the in-house security team, front of house security officers. And I was offered that opportunity because an area came available whereby the hotel needed somebody to work in the evenings alongside the duty security officers. And the role was working from 6 in the evening till 2 in the morning. And there was a specific requirement of that role. And basically it was to keep the prostitutes out of the hotel. Now, the hotel that we worked for, or I worked for at that moment in time, was a very family-oriented organisation hotel, and they had strict guidance as far as this type of thing was concerned, and prostitution was definitely frowned upon. And as far as the legal application of prostitutes is concerned, prostitution in itself is not an illegal action. It's the soliciting that is the illegal action. So my role was to stop any type of soliciting taking place in the hotel, but also to make sure that guests were not bringing in ladies of the night, or toms as we used to call them. I actually queried that definition. Why do people call prostitutes toms and brass? And a lot of different thoughts come from that. It was deemed that, it came back from a Victorian era where tomcats used to prowl the alley looking for sex, and basically that's what the prostitutes used to do. Or it was rhyming slang for Tom Tucker, and I'll leave you to contemplate that one. But irrespective, we used to call them toms or brasses. And we had a lot of them, unfortunately. Park Lane in those days, in the late 80s, early 90s, was rife with prostitution, with people were plying their trades. And they would travel from great distances. We had regulars, believe it or not, who would be up and down Park Lane and Park Street and all those areas. And you got to know them, you got to recognise their faces, you even knew their names, because we were chucking them out on such a regular basis. So my job, as far as front of house, was to throw out prostitutes, which can be quite challenging in its own right, especially when you have clients, guests, bringing prostitutes in, expecting that they could take them up to the room, or actually phoning for prostitutes to come to a room and just be led up to the floors, which is not what was happening. We were very strict on that. So my role was to stop them, which could be quite entertaining. It can be quite challenging. To be honest, it could be quite dangerous at times. A couple of the regular girls that we had work in that area, and I, to be totally honest, I can't remember the names, but we had two girls in particular who would travel all the way from Leicester. And they would get the British Rail, as it was then, and the slogan was with British Rail was "Have an away day." So the girls used to get their ticket, and they'd call it their "Have it away day." So they would travel down to London. Their families thought they were working in bars, restaurants, or whatever in Leicester, and they were coming to London to ply their trades. And they were there almost every night. Got to recognise them. Some of them were good, and as soon as you recognise them, you saw them, you'd say, "Right, girls, it's time to leave. You're off you go," and they would go. Others, however, wouldn't, and some of them would be very obnoxious, some very threatening, some very challenging. And I remember one in particular, Val Bugle, as her name was Valerie Bugle. I don't actually know if that was her name. And I asked why she was called Val Bugle. Was that her name? No, it wasn't. I was told, well, basically it's because she had a big nose, or that she was known for blowing the horn. And again, I'll leave that to your imagination. But Val could be very challenging. most of the time when spotted she would just leave. But if she had a client waiting for her and you spotted her trying to get into the hotel, she would literally give you the runaround, and she would be running all over this hotel. And she knew the hotel better than a lot of the staff there did. And if you did catch her, then she would not be happy, but she would leave and probably try and get in another doorway. And this used to go on. You'd be literally chasing her all over the place, trying to catch up with her, grab hold of her and remove her. This was before the days of the SIA door supervisors qualification, so removing was a little bit different than it is these days. I'm not saying it was any better, it was definitely more challenging. And the two girls from Leicester, in fact I think Val was also from Leicester, they were majority of the time okay. But I do remember a story, and again this is a story, I'm not certain if it actually happened because I didn't witness it, but they were caught on the floor one evening by our head of security one day, and as he was escorting them down the lift, they decided, being playful ladies that they were going to teach him a lesson for chucking him out the hotel. And as they got down to the first floor, just before the doors opened on the ground floor, one of them dropped to her knees, pulled my boss's trousers down as the doors were opening in the main lobby, screaming, "No, no, I won't do that," and ran out, leaving a very embarrassed head of security standing there with his trousers around his ankles. I didn't witness it, so I don't know if it's true. I've been told it was. Another time I've had an incident with those same two girls, and again these were girls who I would be chucking out almost every single night. We used to have celebrities staying in hotels, without giving names away or giving identities away, which I'm obviously not going to do that, don't want to get sued. I remember stopping a very well known singer one night, coming in with his manager and these two girls. These are the two girls that I would chuck out every single night. And I would approach everybody and be very polite in my approach, and I'd say, "Excuse me, sir, ladies, good evening. I'm the security manager for the hotel, or the security officer for the hotel." I did get a manager position, but not quite then. "And can I ask, are you residents?" And this gentleman turned round and he says, "Well, of course I'm a resident, you know who I am." I said, "Yes, sir, I do understand, I do recognise you, and I just need to know, are all the other people with you residents?" And he went, "This is my manager, he's resident." I said, "And the young ladies?" He went, "Well, this lady here is my manager's wife, and this is her friend. And now, if you don't mind, we're going to my suite." And I had to say, "Well, actually, sir, I do mind, I'm sorry, but the ladies are not resident, and therefore they cannot go up onto the floor. We have strict policies that anybody who is not a resident after 10 p.m. is not allowed onto the floor." And he started huffing and puffing and umming and ahhing, "Do you know who I am?" All of this stuff. And he says, "Well, I don't care, we're going up." And with that, I had to stop him. I said, "Gentlemen, let me explain to you, the ladies are not going upstairs." "What do you mean? How dare you talk to me like this?" And I turned around to the gentleman and said, "Sir, this is your wife?" And he said, "Yes." I went, "Well, in that case, sir, I would be very concerned as to what she's doing in the evenings, because I'm chucking these ladies out every single night." I said, "Don't I, ladies?" And they were a bit upset that they weren't going to go and entertain this very famous singer, but they were also laughing and giggling, and with that they turned on their heels and they left, followed closely by these two gentlemen who never complained, and they never mentioned it again. So, interesting times. Another incident I can remember with, well, there's thousands of incidents with the prostitutes. I can remember being on duty one night, and I had family and friends staying. I had my mother and father staying at the hotel, and they were being looked after by the hotel. It was a great time for the hotel to do that for me. And I remember sitting there just chatting with my mother before they were going out for a meal, and I was working, and I spotted one of the known prostitutes coming in. This was a young black lady, and she had a reputation of being quite nasty, and it was believed that she also may have been a sufferer of hepatitis and AIDS at that time. Bear in mind, this was the sort of late 80s, early 90s. And I said to my parents, I said, "You're going to have to excuse me a minute, I'm just going to have a chat with this young lady and escort her from the premises." The young lady was not one of the discreet types of prostitute that we sometimes had coming in, but she was quite flamboyant, and this day she had a very big puffer type jacket that was made up of feathers, and they were I think they were pink feathers, so she stood out. She wasn't trying to come in and unobserved. She didn't care, but we didn't have mobile phones then, so her point of contact with the guests was the guests' telephone booths. So she walked straight to the telephone booths and went onto the telephones, and I followed her through, and I explained to her that she was non-resident, therefore she was going to be asked to leave the premises. I recognised her, I knew her, and she said, in those certain terms, "Go away, I'm on the phone." Now, the phone boxes then were coin operated, and you could see on the coin display as to whether or not anybody had any money in the machines, and this was reading 0, so she didn't have any money in there. I said, "You understand that you're not allowed on the premises, you've been barred from the premises, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I didn't want to physically have to remove her, which if it came to it I would have. And she said, "I'm on the phone," and told me to go away rapidly again. And with that, I just put my hand on the phone and said, "Now you're leaving." Having done that, she decided that wasn't a good action to take, so she tried to hit me with the telephone, and I took hold of the phone, I grabbed hold of her, and we ended up basically struggling, and we ended up on the floor, rolling around on the floor. It's very, very hard to detain somebody on your own, and this was in full view of the lobby. So I'm wrestling around on the floor with this screaming prostitute who was trying to kill me, and also I'm trying to get her off the premises. Luckily I managed to get hold of her, managed to restrain her, and managed to remove her from the building. Unfortunately, while I'm doing that, all I can see is my mother being held back by my father, and my mother is just trying to jump in, and she's going to kill this girl for attacking her son. And I'll never forget that. And I can always remember the words my father's going, and my mother's going, "I'll kill her, I'll kill her." And my dad's going, leave him alone, he knows what he's doing, leave him alone, he knows what he's doing." I finally managed to get her off the premises and out of the hotel. And when I came back in, I used to have a two-piece suit. We were plain clothes, tie suit, etc. And when I came back in, I looked down and I looked at myself, and I saw myself in one of the mirrors reflecting as you walk through, and I looked like Big Bird out of Sesame Street. I was covered from head to toe in this jacket, in these feathers, and yeah, it took me a while to get rid of that, and I had to go and change the suit and everything, but it was fun. It wasn't fun at the time, but going back and remembering it and thinking about what it must have looked like, I must have looked as if I was having a scrap with Big Bird. It must have been hilarious. Anyway, that's just a couple of them. So hopefully you'll keep tuning into these. So welcome to the Life in the Lobby.